Good evening. There's a massive spike in tensions along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. Fresh firings being reported, and it's not just restricted to small arms. There's artillery shelling that's intensified along the 2,600-kilometer-long Durand line after fierce exchanges. Initially small arms, then escalated to artillery. We're told drones and airstrikes have also happened. Afghanistan is saying so. Pakistan isn't confirming it. Between the Pakistani security forces and Afghan Taliban along the AFPAC border. The images that you're seeing on your television screen, Afghanistan government spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid, he's put out a video claiming Afghan forces carried out a raid inside Pakistan. Raid was carried out after Pakistan launched fresh drone and artillery attacks inside Afghanistan. Taliban forces, they killed and captured several Pakistan army positions, weapons, ammunition, and even claimed to have captured a Pakistan army tank. There are reports of firing and shelling and armor engagement along the border from Spin Boulder to Torkham. Reports now say Pakistani forces have targeted a civilian home in the Spin Boulder area. Reports also say that there were children inside the house. They've been rushed to hospital. Would this lead actually to an escalation? Because if Pakistani artillery shelling has led to loss of life of children, this would mean Taliban will react and respond. Reports say civilian homes in Spin Boulder have been targeted. Crossings have been shut down, and Afghanistan army has ordered civilians to evacuate from the border belt. We'll get you that story. We'll get you all details on that story. Coming up at 8:30 tonight, big red terror surrender in Maharashtra. 61 Maoist surrender in Gadchiroli in Maharashtra and 50 in Chhattisgarh. So 111 red terrorists have surrendered. Only 3 districts now remain most affected by red terror, down from nearly 1/3 of the country that was impacted a decade and a half ago. Also coming up on India First, we are changing that story. Also coming up at India First, renowned Indian origin defense expert Ashley Tellis, he played a crucial role, a very critical role in the India-US civil nuclear deal. He's been arrested in the US over handling of secret defense documents and meetings with Chinese officials. We get you that story. Also, Israel's ambassador to India, Ruben Azar, he red flags Hamas' refusal to give up arms and the killings that have begun in Gaza. Lots happening over the course of the next 1 hour. Action-packed 60 minutes. I'm Gaurav Sawant. As always, let's get started with the headlines on India First. Late night NDS seat sharing drama in Bihar. Kushwaha miffed over Mahua seat going to LJP. Kushwaha says all is not well within the NDA. Tejasvi Yadav files his nomination from Raghopur. Lalu and Rabri Devi accompany him. The male friend of the Bengal rape survivor has been arrested. The friend has been identified as Wasif Ali. He was the classmate of the victim and accompanied her to the forest area. Statement of the survivor has now been recorded in court. Haryana top cop's family relents after 9 days of 9th day of his suicide. IPS Puran's family permits a post-mortem after court issued notice to the IPS officer's wife, who's an IAS officer herself. Supreme Court permits green crackers in Delhi. Green crackers to be sold only by certified companies. Delhi to have a cracker of a Diwali this year. Big push towards a Naxal-free India. Number of affected districts reduced to 3. Government targets complete eradication of red terror by March 31, 2026. Big story coming in. Ahmedabad is set to host the centenary Commonwealth Games in India in 2030. India's bid to host the Commonwealth Games in 2030 has been accepted. The Executive Board of the Commonwealth Sports confirms that it will recommend Ahmedabad, India, as the proposed host city for the 2030 centenary Commonwealth Games. Union Home Minister Amit Shah has taken to social media platform X to post a message and say, and I quote, "A day of immense joy and pride for India. Heartiest congratulations to every citizen of India on the Commonwealth Association's approval of India's bid to host the Commonwealth Games 2030 in Ahmedabad." It's a grand endorsement of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's relentless effort to place India on the world sports map, raising world-class infrastructure and raising a nationwide pool of sports talent. Modi ji has made India a marvel of a sports destination. This is a very important step. 2030, the Commonwealth Games will be held in India and in Ahmedabad. That's the big headlines. I want to quickly cut across to Piyush Mishra for more on this, who joins us with the latest. Piyush, give us details. India had campaigned very hard, had a very strong case for Commonwealth Games, the centenary games to be held in Ahmedabad. And this actually is a very major stepping stone for the Olympic Games in India.
Well, also at the same time, Gaurav, it is going to be a proud moment for India, as India is going to host the centenary celebrations of Commonwealth Games. So remember that in September of 2025, there was a cabinet meet which took place at PM Modi's residence. In that cabinet, it was decided that India is going to propose a bid to have the celebrations, to have these Commonwealth Games here in India. After that, the sports minister of the state of Gujarat, Harsh Sanghvi, along with Olympic India Association President PT Usha, they had gone to London. They had presented a bid before the evaluation committee of Commonwealth Sports to let Ahmedabad host the Commonwealth Games. And after the thorough scrutiny, looking into the infrastructure development, governance, technical deliveries, and also the experience which the players will have, the committee, the evaluation committee has now finally given a go-ahead. Now India is going to host Commonwealth Games centenary celebrations, and that will be held in Ahmedabad, and major part will take place there in Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad. The Executive Board of Commonwealth Games has decided to hand over the bid, to hand over the entire process to India, to Ahmedabad, and this has taken place after thorough scrutiny. There were a lot of candidates, various countries, various cities had put forth their bid, yes, but Ahmedabad has won the bid, and that has happened after thorough scrutiny. Gaurav.
Piyush, give us details of the kind of preparations that are already in place in Ahmedabad and how they will now need to be scaled up from 2025 to 2030. You have 5 years, but a lot of effort has already been put in. Infrastructure, sporting infrastructure, and citywide infrastructure that's being put in place.
Well, absolutely, Gaurav, like you rightly mentioned that yes, the state and city will have to be totally decked up for the mega event, because a lot of sports are part of these Commonwealth Games. To hold these sports, one should have the capability, and yes, Ahmedabad has Narendra Modi Stadium, which can accommodate thousands and thousands of people, can hold such games, such sports, and that's why Ahmedabad has won the bid. And now we have the bid. We are going to host the Commonwealth Games centenary celebrations. The preparations will now begin. The primary preparations, the infrastructure thing which is required, the technical delivery which Ahmedabad can give, and also the kind of governance which it needs. All the things are there in in place. And after looking into all these things itself, the Executive Board of Commonwealth Games has given a go-ahead and has proposed Ahmedabad to be the host city of 2020 Commonwealth Games.
Keep tracking that story. I will come back to you for more on this. Lots done, lots more needs to be done for India to emerge as that sporting superpower that we aspire to be. Remember, we've had Commonwealth Games in Delhi in 2010, now in Ahmedabad in 2030, en route to Olympics in 2036. That's the effort, that's the attempt. But I now want to shift focus to our top story. The 2,600-kilometer long Afghanistan-Pakistan border is on fire at multiple locations from Torkham through Khurram, Angur and Spin Boldak. Afghan forces claimed they responded to unprovoked Pakistan Army artillery and drone attacks. Talibani forces crossed the border. They attacked multiple Pakistan Army locations, including border posts and camps. Taliban spokesperson actually put out a video of the Afghan forces returning with what he claimed was a Pakistan Army tank. He also said, and other reports seem to indicate that it's not just tanks, it's armored personnel carriers, trucks, arms and ammunition, and they claim prisoners of war. Pakistan claimed the unprovoked attack was from Afghanistan and Pakistan was only responding, which led to massive loss of life on the Afghan side. Pakistan has reportedly reached out both to Saudi Arabia and to Qatar seeking mediation and peace talks. We get you more in this report.
Flames of war are raging on the volatile Afghanistan-Pakistan border. The Taliban claim to have overrun a key Pakistani military post in Spin Boldak, confiscating weapons, seizing tanks and parading them as trophies. It all began at 4 a.m. Wednesday when Pakistani forces allegedly fired missiles at Afghan post. Within minutes, the Taliban retaliated. Eyewitnesses say a few Pakistani soldiers surrendered.
Pakistan should understand that we will never remain silent in defending our sacred values, the Islamic system and our national interests. If any aggressor attacks us, we will respond in a way that becomes an example for future history. This war is not a difficult struggle for Afghanistan. We have fought much longer distances and larger enemies and have defeated them. This is a relatively easy phase for us.
Disturbing visuals from Spin Boldak show bodies scattered across the battlefield. This war isn't new. It's rooted in a 130-year-old dispute over the Durand Line drawn in 1893 by the British. The line split Pashtun tribes across modern-day Pakistan and Afghanistan. Now Kabul wants it undone, reviving calls for a united Pashtunistan. Pakistan has called upon Qatar and Saudi Arabia to mediate with Afghanistan.
Pakistan asked Qatar and Saudi Arabia to act as mediators and urged the Afghan side to stop fighting. About an hour after the fighting began, Pakistani officials contacted Qatar and Saudi and requested mediation. For God's sake, to stop Afghans from fighting. This information from reliable sources and accepts full responsibility for this statement.
With history, land and identity on the line, the war for Pashtunistan may have just entered a new chapter. Bureau Report, India Today.
So Afghanistan now claims within 15 minutes of its action inside Pakistani territory, Pakistan desperately reached out to Saudi Arabia and Qatar to seek an immediate ceasefire. Apparently, a ceasefire is being put in place for the next 48 hours. The question remains, will Afghanistan follow that ceasefire after children have been targeted in Kandahar? Remember, Pakistan, after that October 11 airstrikes and the drone strikes in Kabul, has carried out fresh drone strikes and artillery attacks on the other side of the border. They've targeted Afghanistan Army garrisons, they've targeted armored personnel carriers and US-made Humvees carrying Taliban commanders. But what is worse, information that's just coming out, is that children were targeted in a building that was targeted had children in it, and apparently there's been some loss of life. This clearly goes far beyond regular skirmishes. Is it escalating into a conflict? And can Pakistan afford tensions on so many fronts? Joining me on this India Today special broadcast is Sushant Sareen, a strategic affairs analyst and a senior fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, on what's happening in this region. Also with us is Professor Raghav Sharma, Professor and Director for Center for Afghan Studies at the School of International Affairs at O.P. Jindal Global University. Sushant, what is your reading of this escalation that is suddenly taking place along the AFPAC border?
Well, I think the provocation came clearly from the Pakistani side. The fact that they went and bombed Kabul meant that the Taliban were going to retaliate. And then, you get into a kind of an escalation spiral. As long as the Pakistanis were bombing some remote border areas, the Afghans were kind of brushing it aside. But you can't be going and bombing the capital city of Afghanistan and then expect that the Taliban are going to keep quiet. Interestingly, what is happening is that all these Pakistani complaints which they are, making, I think they're rather funny and if not entirely disingenuous, because these are exactly the things that Pakistan has been accused of doing. And now they're accusing the Taliban of doing it. So, from the Taliban point of view, they've been trying to play down many of the issues bedeviling their relationship with the Pakistanis. But the Pakistanis are constantly upping the ante. And now, if you hear what is happening in the Pakistani, mind space, they are now starting to talk about regime change in Afghanistan, which means
Yes.
that they are now plotting to either inflict yet another civil war in Afghanistan. I don't know how that will work out. Who are the people who are going to play a role in that? But it will cause even more death and devastation in Afghanistan. And of course, there will be a pushback from the Afghan side, from the Taliban side, who have a fairly big constituency thanks to the myopia of the Pakistani Punjabis who encourage this culture. There is a huge constituency which is pro Taliban inside Pakistan. Uh, so this
And
is
not
not.
just restricted to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. But I'll just come to the response, the retaliation in a moment, Sushant. I want to understand the current escalation. Professor Sharma, Pakistan is a nuclear weapons state. It has a professional armed forces, army, navy, and air force. And you saw that video that's been put out by Zabiullah Mujahid, the spokesperson of the Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan, that Afghanistan troops went inside Pakistan, they killed soldiers, and they came back with war booty, including a tank. What do you make of that? Is this psychological warfare, or does this show that Pakistan's morale is really down in that border belt?
Well, this has truly proved to be a Pyrrhic victory for Pakistan, the Taliban's return. And clearly, what this does demonstrate is the fact that morale in the Pakistani army is very low. And Pakistan's actions in Afghanistan have only reinforced its unpopularity within Afghanistan. And clearly, it shows there is a crisis brewing within the Pakistan army. Its whole project of, promoting radicalization it's a classic case of chickens having come home to roost, so to speak. So what it does underscore is that there is a serious internal crisis brewing within Pakistan, and do not fully know the scale of that crisis. So
Yes.
the fact that a force like the Taliban has been able to stand up and inflict damage on the Pakistanis on such a scale is certainly going to be, a huge cause of embarrassment to the army and to the self-anointed Field Marshal Asim Munir.
This self-anointed Field Marshal Asim Munir, Ambassador Sajjanhar, what is his thinking? First Pahalgam, then Operation Sindoor, then the trouble that he's facing with Tehreek-e-Labbaik, the trouble in Baluchistan, the trouble in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, including Gilgit-Baltistan, and now this escalation with Taliban sending in his fighter jets or drones to bomb Kabul, and I believe there's some bombing that's happening even as we speak in Kandahar, and there are losses of life. But Ambassador Sajjanhar, what is Pakistan up to? Is this part of some wider game as far as pleasing America is concerned, so that America can get the Bagram airbase?
Thank you very much, Gaurav. If it was part of a wider game, then this is a wider game that Pakistan is losing and losing very badly. Because I think it has all really started, meaning all these aspects that you have mentioned about the TTP, about Afghanistan, about Tehreek-e-Labbaik, etc., all that has been happening around, whether it's, discontent in Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, POK, etc. All this has been happening. Asim Munir has been focused much more on his activities, visits, etc., outside the country rather than paying attention to whatever is happening at home. I think basically what has added to all this and given him some sort of an urgency that he has to act is, in my view, the visit also of the Afghan foreign minister to India. that has completely unnerved him, that has completely rattled him, and I think that is what has led to all this ill thought, actions that have been taken by bombing Kabul. Meaning that is totally, as far as the Taliban is concerned, unpardonable. You mentioned that it's a nuclear weapon state. You don't use nuclear weapons in conventional wars like this. We have seen that in Russia, Ukraine,
Yes.
etc. Russia is a nuclear weapon state, but that has not helped it to sort of, cow down the resistance that has come from Ukraine. As
Okay.
far as it's going to appealing to Qatar and Saudi Arabia, it is exactly a repeat of what has happened on the 10th of May. Because,
Yes.
if Pakistan is saying that it is getting the better of the conflict with the Taliban, why would it go to outside powers seeking for mediation and seeking for help? Because, if it has
And
been
seeking
started by that,
visas repeatedly to get to Kabul and those visas being denied. Sir, stay with me for a moment. Major General Sanjay Meston, our former defense attaché at Kabul, joins us on this broadcast. General Meston, you've been speaking to people across Afghanistan. Apparently, there is some bombing that's still on, even though Qatar and Saudi Arabia seem to have brokered some kind of a 48-hour-long ceasefire that Pakistan sought. But in case Pakistan is targeting civilian areas in which children are either being injured, God forbid, dying, clearly Afghanistan will be compelled to respond.
Gaurav, good evening. There is no doubt Afghanistan is going to respond in a very, very solid manner. Now, what has happened on ground today, which of course there are unverified reports. First is that Kabul definitely, area has been bombed where I think some multi-story building has collapsed. That is what the inputs are, how reliable they are. One needs verification, which I think the casualties have been heavy. Secondly, there are also unconfirmed reports. I use the word unconfirmed reports about some bombing at Kandahar airfield. Now, nevertheless, I think what is going to happen now in Afghanistan is the people of Afghanistan definitely now will not leave Pakistan. I have no doubts on that because the way Afghans are, they are a very self-respecting people, and all the tribes now, whether even if it's the Tajiks or the Uzbeks or Hazaras. And I've seen this one trailer in 2013, which I mentioned to you other day, in
Yes.
the incident in Ghosta incident, which was in Nangarhar province. The entire Pakistan, Afghans had united.
Okay.
Now, since the casualties have taken place, I think the unified Afghans will now do something which Pakistan will not realize. They will definitely launch a jihad against the Pakistani army. And I think what the assessment is that firstly, yes, Pakistan has a definite advantage on air oblique missile assets, and they have been using it over a period of time, whether it was in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, whether it was in North South Waziristan, all along the both sides of the Durand line, they have been using this at their discretion. No holds, no barred. Now, the advantage which the Afghans have, they have been fighting for over 5 decades now. This is the kind of
Yes.
experience they have. They have dislodged the Russians who were there for almost a decade. They
No,
have
their
sorted
bigger
out the
advantage vis-a-vis Pakistan is Sushant Sareen. They've stayed in Pakistan all through the US being in Afghanistan. So they know the lay of the land. They know where ISI assets are. They know where ISI, safe houses are. And they'll be able to hit them at home harder, firmer, with a bigger response. And will they remain restricted to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, or could this fire spread to Pakistan's Punjab, Sushant Sareen?
No, look, I think it's too early to speculate where all the fire will spread. But supposing it catches fire in KP, then of course it will naturally spread to the areas across the Indus River. But Gaurav, you have to understand a couple of things. There will be a lot of tall talk from the Afghan side, from the Pakistani side. But militarily, the Daesh is loaded against Afghanistan, at least insofar as conventional warfare is concerned. So if the Afghans are going to try and fight the Pakistanis in the conventional domain, it will be a turkey shoot,
Yes.
largely, right? Maybe in some skirmishes they'll get the better of the Pakistanis. But if this is going to be a guerrilla fight, so which means that the Afghans have to fight the Pakistanis on their own pitch, not on the Pakistani pitch. The second and equally important thing is that the Pakistani will the war be fought inside Afghanistan or will it be fought inside Pakistan? The Pakistanis want that this war should be fought inside Afghanistan without Pakistan going inside Afghanistan, which means primarily by air. The Taliban, however, would want to take the war inside Afghanistan, and it will be a ground kind of an offensive, albeit of a subconventional or an unconventional type, which means that they will bring into play the legions of suicide bombers that they have trained, the kind of light infantry which they have, which is what
TTP
how
would be.
were operating even in the past, IEDs and other kind of stuff, and literally bleed the Pakistanis by 1,000 cuts. So this is not going to be, a 4-day, 5-day, 10-day affair. This will be a long drawn out war of attrition. And do the Pakistanis have the staying power? Right now, they haven't lost enough people. But once they start losing people, that is when they'll realize. One last thing, Gaurav, the Pakistani ambassador Sajjan was mentioning the Pakistanis keep parroting. I'm sick of hearing them. We are a nuclear power. We are a nuclear power. What they don't understand is that they're so hollow from within that it doesn't take much to attack this nuclear power by a
Yes.
determined, committed, and ideologically driven force like the Taliban are. So, frankly, the Pakistanis will show a lot of bravado, typical Punjabi bluster, and say that we are going to go and kick, the backsides of the Afghans. But when the reverse kick comes, I'm not sure that they'll be able to handle it.
Okay. Professor Sharma, you've studied Afghanistan and the Afghan mindset very closely. In your view, if we were to talk about Pashtuns on either side of the Durand line, is this likely to reignite that fire for a greater Pashtunistan? And would that be Pakistan's worst nightmare coming true? Because anyway, Afghanistan does not believe in the Durand line.
Well, if you look at the last 4.5 years since the Taliban have been in power, they've been far more critical of Pakistan and their attempts to fence the entirety of the Durand line than the governments of the republic, and that is because that is part of the core ideological agenda of the Taliban, which is an ideological movement at the end of the day. There is a certain core constituency that they cater to, and the whole idea of Pashtunistan panders very well to that constituency. And Pakistan in this round, by targeting civilians, apparently there were reports that about 80 civilians have ended up in the hospital in Kandahar alone. They've widened the ambit of conflict. They have reinforced Pakistan's already unpopular standing within Afghan civilians, and this is going to mount pressure on the Taliban to retaliate and retaliate decisively. And as Sushant pointed out, if essentially the conflict widens, the ambit of conflict widens and goes into Pakistan, they are certainly going to have it tough in places like KPK, where the Pak army already has a
Yes.
crisis of legitimacy. And that
And do
crisis
you
of
see,
legitimacy.
Ambassador Sajjanhar, and I'll take that to General Miston in just a moment. Do you see Tehreek-e-Taliban Afghanistan, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, Baluch Liberation Army, and other groups uniting? Because Pakistan's attempt has been to unite Islamic State, ISKP, and bring in Lashkar-e-Taiba to target Tehreek-e-Taliban Afghanistan. So there is some kind of a civil war that Pakistan wants inside Afghanistan, but that's a game the two can play, sir.
No,
Ambassador
absolutely, you're very
Sajjanhar.
right. That was exactly the point that I wanted to come to. That basically, when the Afghan Taliban comes within Pakistan and is fighting a war there, it is not alone. It is also, fighting along with, there are other comrades in arms with it. There is, of course, the TTP, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. And, all the others who have been fighting against the Pakistani establishment, against the Pakistan army, against the Pakistan ISI, whether it is the BLA, whether it is in KPK, whether it is Tehreek-e-Labak, whether it is in POK, all of them are going to, find a common cause and, get strength from each other and fight against the Pakistan army. So I think Pakistan is going to have a very difficult, customer on its hands if it tries to do this. And I don't think it'll be really, meaning I take Sushant's point that if they, want to have a contactless sort of a thing from the air fighting, sending aircrafts and missiles, etc. But that it will not be able to sustain for any length of time, because
Yes.
Taliban also, I am Gaurav, if you permit, I'll just say one sentence. I'm currently speaking with you from Astana in Kazakhstan, and there is a meeting of all Central Asian countries, and today we've had discussions on Afghanistan. And I can tell you that all of Central Asia is very keen to engage with Afghanistan and willing to work together. They have been doing that for the last 4 or 5 years, and particularly today, they are very keen to do that. And they look upon this conflict with Pakistan with considerable, sense of distaste. But their support for Afghanistan continues to be as strong and as robust,
Okay.
that I have seen today. So this,
Jel
I
Meston,
don't
in
think
your view, is Pakistan doing this to help America get the Bagram airbase and, by weakening the Taliban, by trying to engineer some kind of a civil war within Afghanistan between ISKP, Lashkar-e-Taiba and Tehrik-e-Taliban Afghanistan? And can Afghanistan pay back in the same coin with all these assorted groups, TTP, BLA, now Tehrik-e-Labbaik, perhaps all of them joining hands to take on the Pakistani establishment?
Gaurav, Pakistan's strategy is very clear. One, they definitely want to please President Trump, that they will assist and bring pressure on Afghan Taliban to give the Bagram airfield, which will never happen. That is one. Second, their strategy is to use air power and of course missiles, etc., to target the Afghan civilians. But Pakistan does not realize that the Afghans, the kind of experience they have, and the international security assistance force was there in entire Afghanistan and including in the border areas. The U.S. Army was launching heavy missile and air force attacks. They were using it
Yes.
at discretion. So what I'm trying to say is the kind of experience now Afghans have, what they will not do. Firstly, all these other groups, whether it is BLA, TTP, and everyone, they will get highly emboldened. Pakistan army now will be committed very badly all along. Now, what will be the strategy of the Afghans? Afghans, they will fritter away into small, small groups. Now, since we were talking about, the conventional war, the
Yes.
Russian tanks, the way they were hit, the entire invasion coming through the Panjshir Valley, I have seen and gone in those areas where so many tanks were destroyed. How?
Yes.
The network of intelligence was very good. They had very, very small groups who were very well armed with rocket launchers and they destroyed tanks. Next, what the Afghans will do, they will raid the Pakistan isolated small posts. This will demoralize them and this will definitely give an impetus to
Okay.
PLA. So
So
overall, my assessment is
guerrilla warfare, perhaps that happens. The last 30 seconds I have on this part of the show. Sushant Sareen, Pakistan's lit so many fires on so many fronts, and especially the one with Tehrik-e-Labbaik in Pakistan's Punjab province, in Murid-ke, in Lahore. Will Pakistan be able to handle that, given that most of the Tehrik-e-Labbaik leadership has either been neutralized or missing?
Yeah, I think Tehrik-e-Labbaik is a very different nature of conflict that Pakistan faces. It's more of an internal, it has an economic dimension, it has partly a religious dimension. And you have to remember who are these people. These are basically the underclass, the carpenters, the plumbers, the basically the lower middle class lot, which is part of the Tehrik-e-Labbaik. You hardly see anybody from the Punjabi elite being part of the
Yes.
Tehrik-e-Labbaik, so it's easier to crush them. But the Tehrik-e-Labbaik will also, it's unlikely to join hands with somebody like the Taliban because doctrinally they come from completely different schools. I
Yes.
don't think that is going to be possible. But what is important, Gaurav, is the sheer reach that has already been established by the Taliban groups. Somebody earlier spoke about the KP province and how they can light fires in KP. You are forgetting Balochistan. Half of
Yes.
Balochistan is Baloch populated and burning. The other half is
Pashtuns.
Pashtun dominated, and that's also going to get affected. And then you have their presence already established in places like POGB and POJK. So if you look at the kind of footprint they have now started establishing inside Pakistan, you have a real problem on your hands if you're a Pakistani general, especially if you are running a country on the basis of a deeply unpopular regime, which has not been elected, which is not popular, which has been implanted upon the people of Pakistan
Yes.
through a rigged election. You have an army which is extremely unpopular. Maybe some sections of Punjab continue to support it, but by and large, it's extremely unpopular in rest of the country. So
Okay.
you once again that perfect storm which is building up, provided the trajectory of events which they are continue like this. But I don't see
We'll-
this even. There might be a temporary pause, but eventually it's going to keep erupting every now and then.
The build up to that perfect storm, and we'll be tracking that story very closely. I want to thank all my guests for joining me here. 111 Naxals have given up arms just today, 61 in Gadchiroli in Maharashtra, including a top Naxal commander, M. Venugopal Rao, alias Bhupati. So Bhupati and 60 armed Naxal cadre, they gave up their weapons. Another 50 Naxals gave up their arms and surrendered in Chhattisgarh. This is a major boost to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government's mission for a Naxal-mukt Bharat or a red terror-free India. The number of most affected districts has now dropped to just 3. Total left-wing extremism-affected districts are now down to from 18 to 11. This year alone, 312 Naxal cadre were neutralized. Over 800 arrested and more than 1,600 surrendered to join the mainstream, apart from 111 today. So there have been a record number of operational successes that have been reported because of a sustained policy of establishing COBs or company operating bases in the worst red terror impacted areas, connectivity, infrastructure development, roads, schools, hospitals coming up in that area, and of course jobs, employment, all part of a national action plan showing unprecedented results according to government sources. So the government is targeting complete eradication of red terror by the 31st of March 2026.
मुझे हमारे सारे वरिष्ठ अधिकारियों ने कहा कि वो ये चाहते हैं कि महाराष्ट्र में आके आपके सामने वो इस प्रकार से सरेंडर करे। तो मैंने उनको कहा कि आप उनको हाँ कहिए, अगर आवश्यकता पड़ी तो मैं जंगल भी आने को तैयार हूँ, क्योंकि इतना बड़ा केडर अगर आत्मसमर्पण करता है तो ये बड़ी बात है। लेकिन हमारे पुलिस ने उनको गढ़चिरौली में लाकर यहाँ पर उनका आत्मसमर्पण किया। देखिए, माओवाद के खिलाफ की लड़ाई में हम सब एक हैं, चाहे वो छत्तीसगढ़ हो, चाहे महाराष्ट्र हो, चाहे तेलंगाना हो। हम एक दूसरे के साथ कोऑर्डिनेशन में ही काम करते हैं। चूँकि बहुत दिनों से हमारी जो पुलिस है वो भूपति के साथ संपर्क बनाए हुए थी, उनके आत्मसमर्पण से छत्तीसगढ़, तेलंगाना सभी को फायदा होगा।
I want to bring in my colleague Shivani Sharma, who's been tracking developments on the story very closely. Shivani, I remember it was 2008 when then Prime Minister, late Dr. Manmohan Singh, had called left-wing extremism the biggest threat to India's national security, and that was a time when almost 1/3 of our country was impacted by left-wing extremism. In fact, there was an entire Naxal corridor that we were reporting. Now, most Naxal-infected districts reduced to just 3. Will this aim of Naxal-mukt Bharat be achieved by the 31st of March 2026? What's the roadmap?
See, Gaurav, this is unprecedented success in the operations against Naxalism, and now, as you are also mentioning the figures, the achievement seems to be quite real, because, you know, we are witnessing the surrenders taking place almost every week. Today also 111 cadres have surrendered, and this is happening because of an action plan in place. There's much integrated coordination between the state police and the CAPFs in these Naxal affected areas. Now they have significantly reduced to 3, and LWE affected districts have also reduced to 11. So there is a rehabilitation and a surrender plan in place. There is better intelligence sharing, and the whole action plan is working in coordination in these areas. So it seems that the target which have been put by the Home Ministry and by the government of achieving completely Naxal-free India by 31st March 2026 is quite achievable, as we see the success of these operations in recent recent months.
Shivani, keep tracking that story. I will come back to you for more. It's a very major step, especially when Naxals surrender with weapons, join mainstream, and then many are a part of that effort to bring out others and help them join the mainstream. Those who don't then stand the threat of being neutralized. We'll be tracking that story very closely. Big story coming in. A renowned Indian origin foreign policy scholar and strategist Ashley Tellis has been arrested in the United States of America. Ashley Tellis has been charged with unlawfully retaining classified national security and national defense information in the United States of America. The Federal Bureau of Investigation that arrested Tellis followed months of investigation. There's possible removal of restricted and classified documents from the US State Department and the US Department of Defense. Reports say the 64-year-old was also in touch with Chinese government officials, a claim that's now under investigation. Now, if convicted, Ashley Tellis could face up to 10 years in prison and a fine of $250,000. And of course, he would have to forfeit all the classified material in his possession. So over 1,000 pages of top secret and secret documents, classified as such, were reportedly recovered from his home in Virginia and several rooms and his computer. Tellis was born and educated in Mumbai, well known in India's diplomatic and academic circles for his role in the very crucial India-US civil nuclear deal during the George Bush era. He's worked both with Republicans and with Democrat administrations. His arrest has actually triggered a political storm even in India. The ruling Bharatiya Janata Party has alleged that Ashley Tellis was part of an anti-India lobby, and a certain section of leaders in India used to amplify whatever he said to bring a bad name to India. Opposition voices, including like Priyanka Chaturvedi, have dismissed Ashley Tellis as a sellout to the highest bidder. But let me now get you details of the investigations by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And these are details that the FBI has put pen to paper to reveal that the agency was tracking his movement for at least months, if not years. It referred to his meeting with Chinese government officials. The affidavit outlines a pattern of unauthorized access, printing and removal of classified documents from the State Department and from Department of Defense facilities during a specific period. That's the 12th of September and the 25th of September 2025. So Ashley Tellis was under video surveillance during this period. And these videos have captured him leaving buildings with briefcases or bags or envelopes believed to contain this classified material. There were specific informations and incidents that have also been mentioned. For example, on the 12th of September 2025, Ashley Tellis accessed and printed classified documents related to the US defense planning of certain military aircraft capabilities. Then again on the 25th of September 2025, and it's classified as evening activity, at approximately 19 minutes past 8 o'clock, Ashley Tellis opened a 1,288-page PDF file titled References to Adversary Fighter Aircraft, and 2024 marked Secret Foreign Representation, indicating foreign government information releasable to specific allies, no foreign nationals, no Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act protection. So the document featured the Department of Air Force seal and a detailed US Air Force. It had details of their tactics, of their techniques and procedures. He apparently renamed it on his computer as Econ Reform. Printed pages from page number 943 to page number 959, and then went on to delete the file at 8:51 p.m. according to the FBI affidavit. The same day at 8:52 p.m., he printed all 40 pages of Air Force Weapons School documents on aircraft, military aircraft capabilities. Then at 8:53 p.m., he printed another 40 pages from the same source on military aircraft. These actions, according to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, involve printing on government computers or requesting a colleague to do so with topics focused on very sensitive US military assets, posing grave risk to US national security. I want to quickly cut across to India Today's Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan, who joins us with the latest on the story. Geeta, these charges are extremely serious and based on surveillance and recovery of classified documents. This would indicate serious trouble for Ashley Tellis.
Well, not just serious, it's scathing, Gaurav. The fact that they have him on video surveillance, taking out, printing documents from his office when he was there as part of State Department, including the then Department of Defense. Now, if, like you rightly pointed out, should he be held guilty, he is going to be in for a very, very long time. We've all known Ashley Tellis, interacted with him, known him as a scholar, a critique in the recent years of India and India's policy, so to say. But to know now that he was holding and withholding information, documents, classified documents in his home after, like we were having a conversation just a while ago, after NSA Bolton was also raided and there were documents that were found there, to have all these documents in his house, running thousands of pages, is certainly a very, very serious offense, one, in itself. Secondly, to have video surveillance in which we're looking at videotapes of him having meetings with Chinese officials, another very, very serious offense, not because they met, but because there was that the file that he carried and the gift that was exchanged. Now, that is going to be another very scathing evidence against Ashley. So, Ashley certainly at this point in time looks like he's in a lot of trouble. And
the political war within our country, Geeta, that's also very interesting. Some of his write-ups have been seen to be hostile to the Narendra Modi government. And would it add up, Geeta, given the FBI investigations talking about his meeting with Chinese officials? It would also be very interesting who were the officials or who were the political leaders he was interacting with in India.
Well, absolutely. Who he was meeting, what were the meetings all about? See, he met a lot of people even in the dispensation because he was close to the dispensation as well. Becoming a critique or and starting to criticize India does not mean that his meetings over here would not have people from all walks or all areas of the aisle, so to say, both sides of the aisle, so to say, Gaurav. That certainly would happen. But in the recent past, he was critical. Over here, the focus for United States of America will be more to do with what he was sharing in terms of information, because look at the details you've put out in terms of information with the Chinese that could undermine and compromise American security. Now, that is certainly going to be what is going to be the focus of the charge sheet, which it certainly looks like, having seen what they're putting out there. And should he be held guilty, it is going to be a lot of trouble. So all that, I'm sorry to say, but if at all he's earned, or all that he's earned is going to go into a lot of lawyers' fees in the coming months.
I'm going through those charge sheets and there's lots more that's coming up in the days and weeks ahead, and Geeta Mohan and I will get you more on the story. Geeta, for the moment, many thanks for joining me. Images from Gaza that are horrifying the world even today. Armed Hamas terrorists rounding up fellow Palestinians and then killing them in cold blood. Not once, not twice, not one and not two, but multiple rounds of Gazans being lined up and shot dead. Some of these images are so horrifying, we can't even show them to you. Reports say in the past 48 hours, at least 60 people have been killed on the suspicion of being spies for Israel by Hamas. As these images show you, Hamas is clearly, one, not giving up arms, two, not giving up control on power. So what does this mean for the ceasefire that's in place? I spoke to Israel's ambassador to India, Ruben Azar, on whether that ceasefire is holding. Will Hamas give up arms? And what's the road ahead for peace in the region? We get you some excerpts. Have all the bodies been returned? Has Hamas kept their side of the promise? Has Israel kept their side of the promise, returning all the prisoners, apparently including some accused of terrorism?
Unfortunately, Gaurav, Hamas is not implementing the agreement. They were supposed to give us back all the living hostages and all the deceased, all the murdered hostages within 72 hours. They didn't do that. They gave us only 4 deceased, another 4 hopefully today, but they haven't met the terms of the agreement. Look, this is a great opportunity for everybody. Israel has embraced the plan, the 20-point plan of President Trump. The world has embraced it. Hamas has agreed to it. It means that there is a path for peace, Gaurav. But in order for that path to be implemented, the sides have to keep to the path. They have to commit to implement. This is the great danger. We need international pressure put on Hamas so they implement the plan that the world and the sides have adopted.
So has Hamas agreed to disarm, and how will Israel ensure that Hamas does not remain in power in Gaza, or is that not a condition for Israel anymore?
No, of course it's a condition. It's part of the 20-point plan. Hamas has agreed to one thing in Sharm el-Sheikh, but now some leaders are distancing themselves from that. They are killing their own people. They are saying that they are going to stay in power. So yeah, if we do not pressure them, this opportunity can be lost. We have to be very adamant, very focused on implementing the plan.
So what role can countries like India play in, one, ensuring peace remains in that area, two, rebuilding Gaza, and that cooperation with Israel continues or intensifies?
Well, first of all, nobody is going to reconstruct Gaza if Hamas stays in power. That's very clear. But if the plan gets implemented, there's going to be hope and opportunity for everybody, for us, the Palestinians, and India is playing an increasing role in our region because India is a world power, is the fastest growing economy in the world. India has a lot of stakes in our region, when it comes to workforce, when it comes to logistics, when it comes to trade, when it comes to building infrastructure. Only 2-3 weeks ago, we had here our finance minister that signed with India a bilateral investment treaty. We invited Indian companies to participate in tenders, infrastructure tenders in Israel that are going to be published in the next 10 years. We're talking about $200 billion. And this is besides what opportunities we're going to have in Gaza and other places in the region. So opportunity is there. I'm sure that India can play a great role because it has a lot to offer.
When it comes to manpower in Israel, what kind of manpower is Israel looking at in terms of skilled workers, semi-skilled workers? What kind of role are you looking at, and is India making inroads in that direction? What are your expectations
what
of
we
India?
have seen in the last year, Gaurav, is that from the classical jobs that the Indians were having that were mainly in healthcare and unskilled, we are moving to the skilled labor and to the high-skilled labor. We have recruited very high-skilled labor in the construction sector from India, about 20,000, in addition to the 20,000 we had before. And this will only grow because the economy in Israel, that has been growing throughout the war, will grow even faster. Our economy is doing very well, and there is going to be a lot of demand for manpower. So I'm sure this trend will continue.
I now want to shift focus a little and talk about defense cooperation between India and Israel, which was always very strong. Post Operation Sindoor, is it becoming stronger, and how?
Gaurav, we are going from strength to strength because as this cooperation succeeds, it also expands. We gain more achievements, we gain more trust, and that means that we have to develop the mechanisms that will allow us to go faster, deeper, and to a much sophisticated level. We already produce together different kinds of defense systems, including drones, and we want to be able to be in a situation that we can produce much more, that we can rely on each other for solutions, that we can develop solutions together. And this is being discussed between bureaucrats in the defense establishment, and hopefully we're going to hear news about that soon.
So I believe both India and Israel are working together, and tell us how in being able to trust each other more in terms of intelligence, operations, weapons, and joint manufacture of those weapons and systems in India, including on air defense. And there's some kind of a framework you're working on. What can you tell us about that, sir?
Well, I cannot elaborate at this point. We are very seriously engaging because we have a lot of things that we need from each other. And I'm sure that people are going to do a good job because we have a common interest.
So India and Israel, the friendship continues to grow from strength to strength, and not just restricted to defense or intelligence sharing, but agriculture, new technology, and so much more. We'll be tracking that story very closely, but that is all I have for you on this India First special broadcast. Many thanks for watching.